Hello everybody, here just to do a review of the distribution for the month. Now I will try to make some adjustments to the workbook before next month. However, we will see how things go. But as you can see here, if we're looking at Declaration Day down here, we can see that we had zero change in shares, outstanding shares there for today for YMAG specifically. And then you can see, well, row 13 and 14 are new, at least for this month. And just to show you a little bit of data here, so on line 13 there, the $95,000, the green $95,000 means that this is money that they didn't pay out, right? So if we look at the dividends paid column, you can see the whole month it was 1.3 million. That's the amount of dividends they received. And then on line 12, the fund of funds ex dividend date, that is the amount of funds that they will pay out based on the outstanding shares and the distribution amount per share. And then this is just the difference between those numbers. So YMAG received 1.3 million in divs and paid out 1.2 million. So it has, about that $95,000 left over. And then 93 is just showing that 93% of the dividends received by YMAG were paid out. And then in the built-in buffer here, it's just saying that they built in a buffer that they could have paid for, an 8% buffer that they could have paid another 150,000 of shares distributions with the money that they had, or with the dividends that they had received from the underlying. And then the reduced by in columns I and H down there is the difference between the distribution amount. Well, let's say if you had the underlying, the single stock ETFs, if you had that instead, you were looking at an average distribution of 83 cents, if you recall it from the beginning, which was right here, and that was the yield. And then I'll scroll over so you can see the other columns. And then so the difference between that up front from day one and the actual was a difference of 21 cents a share, or a 12% decrease. So if you held the underlying and you did it with the same methodology as YMAX, and doing it by the your portfolio percentages being very similar. I say very similar, I'm not going to say exactly the same because there's no way it's ever going to be exactly the same, but I think it's roughly about 5% per ticker. If you did that, then that was your average. Oop, I lost my thing. The 83 cents was going to be your average, but if you're holding YMAX, this would be your average. So that's it. Which actually I have that over here too. I actually did this before I unhid these columns. I forgot that I created these columns afterwards. Which, with that said, what I'll probably do just to make these columns smaller, maybe I'll just take this amount, or to have less columns, and maybe I just move that down here instead. And then I could actually get rid of those columns altogether. I think I had done it though for a reason from last month, because you could see here too, the estimate here based on those shares that day and this, and just seeing the difference, which I might have, now that I said that, I might have that over here, down 3%. Yeah, I didn't realize that, so I basically just built that again as well. But I was trying to build things over here on the right, and I had forgot that I had these columns hidden like that, and then when I opened them, I didn't even think to truly look at them. But, so with that said, this at the top, right, was our data from last month. It could be just a little bit off, yeah, based on today's stock price, so it may be a little bit different. But this right here, so remember up here we had from last month, the fund of funds declaration to the actual date, there was like a 5% difference. So that was what was used for this first line. I don't remember what the numbers were right there for last month, but I'm sure it's somewhat similar. And then down here, this is just showing this month's with 3%, which is apparently what that also shows over there. All right, sorry. I don't know why, but somehow the formula was changed here, and I was trying to figure out why. But we'll go over YMAX in the similar way, and then I just want to compare why they're different, or why I'm assuming that they're different, right? So this one, let's see, what did I say down here? That we had an 8% buffer, or 150,000 shares buffer here. All right, so if we go over to the YMAX here, you can see that they didn't have that buffer there. So you see here we have a built-in buffer of only 1%, which was enough to pay an additional 50,000 down here. And if you look, we actually had people buy into YMAX today, even though we didn't have anybody buy into YMAG. So they bought in 100,000 outstanding shares there. So in the end, that ended up them paying more for distributions than what was received by 1%. And so you can see that here again, difference paid and the percentage paid, right? So 101%, so 1% more. And then, of course, we just went over the buffer. And then here, as far as reduced by, again, if you had held the underline with the similar percentage, your average would have been about 87 cents a share for your portfolio if you had created one similar to the YMAX project that I'm doing. And then versus what was actually paid, so you're looking at about a 24-cent reduction, which is this 12% is a 12% between the yields right there. But now that I look at that, maybe, well, no, I keep it the same. But if you're looking at percentage-wise to this right here, that's obviously a lot more than that. But that's sort of good information too. But, oh well. All right, well, I really wanted to know. So I put it here. So I put here on the left-hand side, if it was that 87 cents was reduced by 24 cents, that's actually reducing the payout itself by 28%, which is the 24 divided by 87 cents. And then just to look back over here real quick, which of course, where I was editing it, there we go. It ended up being a 25% reduction, 21 cents reduced from the 83 cents there. Oh. I know I hear a lot of people, say that, oh, they don't care, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But if your distributions are being reduced by 28%, you might care. I don't know. Of course, some people, they just don't want to do the work. They don't want to buy in every month to different tickers, and they just want to buy into one ticker. And if you don't have large amounts of money, then, that would be fine too, because you don't have enough to spread around to make a big difference, right? You may not be able to buy all the tickers to be able to do that. But anyway, So now I'll have that there. Of course, I'm sure I'll do updates for next month as we continue to build this spreadsheet. So we just basically stated that we could probably get away with that part. And then, yeah, so we can see over here, looking at last time it was 5% reduction. And this time is only 0.5%. So over here, if we were looking at YMAG, it was -3%, and then over here we're looking at 0.5%. Now, so this is just sort of, again, seeing these updated with the percentages, and then sort of looking at some data down here on the bottom. And then, of course, looking at that funds, declaration to the actual, that percentage, their difference. But what I've done is I've updated this side over here, and to just sort of show you the reasoning behind the difference in the buffers, or at least my assumption is that if you look, well, let's start with YMAX because it's easier to see. So here's the data for YMAX. And if you look, last month, we only paid out 91% of our distribution. So it's 208,000. And I said this in one of the first few videos that I had decided not to account for. Sorry, I just realized my totals are hidden down here. I decided not to account for February in my totals because my data was off by a day, because this was before I was pulling the data daily. So these could be off by that amount, and I hated to include it in the number saying that they overpaid when I can't confirm for sure that they did. So at this point, I've got the data there, and of course we have the red cells again, but I can't confirm for sure that they paid out more or not there. But so we're just looking at the March, and we still had an extra $208,000 from March that we did not pay out. So they could get a little bit closer here and didn't have to have such a big buffer there. Unlike over here, when we were looking at YMAG, they ended up only having about 21,000 left over. So they made a bigger buffer. Of course, in this case, for YMAG this month, nobody bought in. So now they have even larger amount here. So now at the bottom, if you look at the totals, again, if we don't include February, for YMAG now, they have an extra 175,000 from March and April that they didn't distribute. And then for YMAX over here, if you look at March and April, they have about 189,000 that they did not distribute. So these are about the same. And then again, I'm just going to have to assume that February was somewhat of a wash, since I do not know for sure, as I didn't know the exact share count for the holdings the day of the single stock ETF ex dividend date, sorry, or the day before. I had to think about that for a second. But yeah, so that would be a reason for the difference in those buffers being different for this month, and I did not take this to account because I wasn't sure, based on the questions that I had before, are they going to try and cover? Of course, in this case, it was first, what I typed here was first payout, because that was when I was including February to begin with. But, are they going to include past payouts if they, were positive or negative? Or they're just going to try to account for it going forward, or will they do both? So that goes back to some of those original questions that we didn't have answers for. And so based on how they did this, I can only assume that they are using the past data where they may have overpaid or underpaid. But anyway, I know this is more for the nerds that like to see the numbers and, different data in different ways, and just really dig down into the numbers versus just wanting to know what's the payout. But I know I always like to do these recaps. I was going to push this, but I decided I might as well go ahead and knock it out and get it done and over with. I just wasn't feeling well today, and I just ended up doing it anyway. I'm sure there'll be something later I think about that I should have put on here or whatever, and it'll just have to be for next month. And I'll start making adjustments to this. Hopefully, I don't know, in the next week or so after I've had a little bit of rest time. These declaration weeks, they it takes a lot, especially while we're still trying to, adjust workbooks and stuff like that. Just a lot of time goes into them and thought process. But anyway, I will let y'all go. And I hope y'all enjoyed this. And hopefully we will get better as we go and get better in understanding why they do what they do. Oh, there was one thing, and I do apologize. The holdings, nope, outstanding shares. So if you just want to see where we were in the end here, for those of you that didn't see the second video, I didn't cover this on the initial video because I forgot. These are all the outstanding shares, and then these are the changes, so we can see. Where's my thing? So here, from the single stock ex dividend date to the declaration date of the YMAG or the fund of funds, there was a 40% increase in outstanding shares for YMAG and a 25% increase for YMAX. And then the next percentage here is basically what happened throughout the month, the busy times, outside of the week of declaration there. This is just showing that YMAG went up 14% in outstanding shares and YMAX went up 26%. And this was, of course, on March 8th. Then, as far as, where we went increase-wise during that pay period or that pay week, I don't know what I want to call it. No, I don't know, but anyway, right this second, I guess I'll call it pay week. But during this week right here, it jumped to 35% and 34% for YMAX there. And then for the dead period, YMAG actually went down 3%, after the fund of fund ex dividend date and the single stock pay date. I might have said declaration date above, but I'm reading, if I read over here, the pay date, it went down 3%, but YMAX itself actually went up 3%. So, and then when we see where we enter or leave this period as far as our from our declaration date to pay date, we're looking at an increase for the YMAG. It increased 24%, while the YMAG increased 34%. So actually, YMAX increased 34% both months there. But anyway, this was just a little extra thing to. I see a spelling here. A little extra thing to look at. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed, and I will talk to y'all later.